Do you need a Nexus letter with every single VA disability claim you send up to the VA? No, not necessarily. And I'm really excited about making this video today because a lot of veterans think that they need to send a Nexus letter up with their VA disability claim in order for it to get approved, or they at least wonder if they should because they don't want to waste time and they want to get their VA disability claim approved. In this video, I'm going to break down when you actually need a Nexus, how you can obtain one, and whether it's worth paying for one. So let's get started. Before we dive too deep into this, I want to talk about what a Nexus actually is. It's simply a connection between a medical condition that you have or a disability and your service connection, whether it was an injury in service or some sort of event in service. You're going to need a nexus between those two in order for the VA to approve your claim by giving it service connection. And why does it matter? Because without a nexus, without everything connecting in all three of those components, the VA is going to deny your disability claim. And with as long as it takes for the process, once you submit your disability claim and for the VA to make a decision, could be months to even years. And the worst thing you want to do is get a denial and have to start all over again. So it's definitely important to submit a fully developed claim with all of the medical evidence to include a nexus. Today, I'm talking primarily about Nexus letters and whether you need to pay for them, but I want you to understand that there's different ways to get a Nexus so you're not focused solely on paying for one as your first option. And I think that's going to be extremely valuable for you, especially those of you who are considering to pay for one. How to obtain a Nexus. So believe it or not, there's a lot of free ways that you can do this, and these are smart ways and strategic. I'm not going to discount the value of buying or paying for a Nexus letter. I'm certainly not going to do that because there are times when you need to submit a Nexus letter to the VA. And I'm going to talk about those towards the end of this video. But, you know, we're all veterans and we're not made of money. There are some free options that I want you to try first. So number one, believe it or not, is a C&P exam. You're gonna go to a VA C&P exam. You're gonna have an examination done there by a doctor or a physician assistant. They can establish the nexus if they find a clear connection. That's gonna take some work on your part up front. You're gonna wanna understand each one of the disabilities that you're pushing forward. And I've talked about this in other videos, but you need to know what your service connection is. And you need to understand what's necessary to get a service connection so that you can articulate that to a doctor. Now, I would not walk into a VA C&P exam without some evidence in your hand to be able to not only articulate how it's connected, but show them how it's connected by showing them whatever medical documents or whatever evidence that you have to prove that there is some sort of service connection. The next thing is simply medical records. You might already have a nexus in your private or your VA medical records, which could keep you from being required to send or pay for a separate letter from your doctor. These things could be in your service treatment records already, where it clearly states that you were diagnosed with condition A while serving on active duty. And that could, prove to a C&P examiner and a VA rater that you have service connection because you were diagnosed while you were in the military. You would just need to show additional records indicating that you continue to be seeking treatment. And that's actually really the ideal way. And they call that direct service connection. So that's probably the most ideal. But as you're going to go through this process, you're going to find out you probably didn't go see the doctor very much while you were in the military, and that's okay, because there's other options. You could also get a Nexus statement or even a Nexus letter free of charge from your family doctor, the current doctor that you go see when you're not feeling well or when you need to see a doctor. You could have a specialist, someone who you see regularly for whatever condition you're dealing with. Maybe it's orthopedic, or maybe it's a psychiatrist, or just a regular doctor. Maybe a foot doctor, a podiatrist, whatever it is that whoever you're seeing, if you see them and they know your condition and they know what your problems are, you could simply ask them. Tell them you're applying for VA disability. Tell them that you're trying to figure out if your condition is or has anything or had anything to do with the time that you served. You could also explain to them about something that happened to you in the military that you think may have caused this condition that you have. And if they agree with you after reviewing your medical records and understanding, what it looked like when you were there, is it possible that the issues that you're dealing with had anything to do with that event or that, time in service? And if they agree that it is, they could write a Nexus statement in your medical records, which would be like gold moving forward with your VA disability claim. They could also write you a letter, which would be a Nexus letter. And most doctors, your private personal doctors, could do it for free. You could also see a VA doctor, and you could ask the VA doctor to do the same thing. Although I think in my experience, the VA doctors may not be willing to assist on that, but you could give it a shot. You could also pay a qualified physician who specializes in VA disability claims to review your medical records, to hear your story, and to write a compelling argument on your behalf if they agree with the theory, or if their findings are positive for you. You could get a Nexus that way. I like the ones that I talked about before because they're free, they're easy to obtain, and they work. But you can pay for a Nexus letter by your doctor, or by a doctor that specializes in VA disability claims. So when do you need a Nexus letter? Well, if your condition is already listed as service connected in your records and you're just trying to get an increase, you don't need a Nexus letter because you are already service connected. All you need to do is to be able to show more severity in your symptoms or whatever the case is, just to get that increase. But you don't need a letter for VA disability claims where you are already service connected, because the VA has already made a decision on that. You also don't need a Nexus letter when the disability or the diagnosis is clearly documented in your service treatment records, like we just talked about. There's no sense in paying for a Nexus letter when the records are already reflect that the veteran was diagnosed with something in service. I don't think you'll get many doctors that will take advantage of you and make you pay for a Nexus letter if they know that it's already written in your records. But, it could happen, and I don't want to see any veterans paying $1,000 to have a doctor service connect them for something that's currently written down in their medical records, unless they've already tried to get it appealed and it's just not working. There are times though when you're going to need a Nexus letter, but I highly suggest using those other options we talked about first. When you're filing for when you're filing for a condition that's not in your service treatment records, or you don't have the Nexus, or you feel like the Nexus that you have isn't strong enough and you've tried those other options, then a Nexus letter, could be effective for you during those VA disability claims. Also, secondary conditions. If you're trying to connect a new condition or a non-service connected condition to something that's already service connected, that is going to definitely require a nexus. It's definitely going to require you to have something very well articulated, whether it's a nexus letter that you pay for or a nexus statement in your medical records. You're definitely going to need that. Absolutely. So we talked about a bunch of free ways. We talked about when nexus statements or nexus letters are required, but when should you actually fork out money to pay for a nexus letter? Like, when should you start reaching out to folks and paying for a nexus letter? Well, when your claim lacks strong supporting evidence in your favor to show service connection, that might be a time to consider getting a nexus letter, paying for a nexus letter. However, make sure that make sure that you're doing this with somebody, right? Get with the VSO, explain to the VSO, listen, I'm about to spend $1,000 on a nexus letter because my disability claim was denied. I think that will spark the attention of these VSOs to pull you in for an appointment and talk to you about what you're about to pay for, and show them your claim. They'll be able to access it. They'll be able to look at it. They might be able to brainstorm some better ideas with you. But if you're not winning and you're not getting it done and you feel like it's there and your VSO feels like it's there, then it might be time for you to pay for a nexus letter. Another time when it might be appropriate to pay for a nexus letter is when you're filing for that secondary condition that we just talked about, and you need that expert opinion to establish service connection. This is probably one of the areas that's most likely going to require a nexus letter, and I am a big fan of getting a nexus letter in these circumstances. You and I were not medical professionals. We can't make that determination, and neither can the VA rater, but the VA rater will give credibility to a medical professional who reviews your records, examines you, and then provides their professional expert opinion in a letter documenting what they think. And submitting that to the VA could could make your VA disability claim get a favorable decision at the end of that. And that is a very appropriate time to to pay for a nexus letter. Now, one caveat to that, I probably wouldn't I would probably first try to get my doctor, to assist me with like a nexus statement in my medical records to say, hey, I think, diagnosed condition A is connected to diagnosed condition B, and here's why. I would go that route first because it's free. And then you could submit it, and if the VA denies it, then you could come back with a secondary, with an appeal, or just go higher level review and see what happens. But that's just my opinion on this. I say wait to pay for the nexus letter until you've exhausted those free options. Once the VA has denied, your claim, whether it was secondary or you're trying to connect it in a different way, if they still deny it due to a lack of a nexus, then it would be appropriate to pay for a nexus letter. Now, just a word of caution here: paying for a nexus letter can be expensive. Only consider it if it's needed to strengthen your claim and get that claim approved. To sum everything up here, you don't need a nexus for every single VA claim, but a nexus is crucial if your condition is not already service connected. Remember, a nexus can come from a C&P examiner, your medical records, a personal doctor, and even a VA doctor. Be strategic about when you pay for a letter. It's not always required. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more VA disability tips.